Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. I'm your host, Lucas Drege, Solution Specialist here at AgilePoint, and thank you for joining me today. Now, if you're just talking to AgilePoint for the first time, or perhaps you've been using a prior version of the platform and would like to catch up on all that's new in AgilePoint version 7, you're in the right place. You've probably noticed that your lines are muted. That being said, we do want to encourage interaction, and the best way to do that is by using the questions panel in the Zoom console. If we don't address your question throughout the course of the webinar today, we do have 15 minutes at the end to address those questions as a group. There are going to be two major components to today's webinar. Up front, I have a few quick slides to set some context and share a few customer stories. And then we'll jump into a live demonstration of what you can build using AgilePoint. For those of you on the phone who are chatting with us for the first time, let's take a moment or two to go over a little bit about AgilePoint and our background. AgilePoint was founded in 2003, and over the last 15 years, over 1,500 organizations have entrusted their most mission-critical application needs to AgilePoint. As you can see from the graphic on screen, we span every major industry and vertical, with particular success in the challenging industries of manufacturing, government, and financial services. Not only have we been recognized by our customers for delivering value across a wide variety of use cases, but also from the analyst community, with AgilePoint being the only vendor in the low-code application development space to appear across these 4 industry reports. Now, what you can take away from this report here is that our customers, and in turn the analyst community, have recognized that you can get quite a wide array of value from a single, versatile AgilePoint platform. From the traditional BPM use cases that feature long-running and complex processes, to the more recent emergence of low-code development and digital process automation. With a single technology platform, we're able to deliver a wide variety of enterprise use cases, such that many of our customers have now selected AgilePoint as the organization-wide application development standard. Speaking of those customers, roughly 50% of them are Global 2000 or at minimum multinationals. 85% are using AgilePoint in some sort of business-critical capacity. Think from a manufacturing perspective, smart manufacturing, or some sort of shop floor process. Or maybe for an insurance organization, the claims process. 80% have deployed AgilePoint as the first choice in enterprise application development. And 65% of our customers have come to AgilePoint after having failed with a competitive technology. Now you're seeing a cross-section of customers on screen here, and I'll go through a few customer cases in just another moment. So let's first talk about why we're here, right? Why are companies adopting low-code technologies like AgilePoint at such a great pace? Well, the first challenge is traditional development methods simply can't keep up. In this era of digital transformation, the demand for automation and custom software, both for the cloud as well as mobile devices, is simply more than most organizations can handle. These increased demands can be easily addressed by a model-driven or declarative development tool like AgilePoint, using drag-and-drop components, reusable pieces, and by using visual data modeling and process modeling. Now, this can also include forms, and that's a large part of the AgilePoint technology stack, and we'll show a few examples of that a little later on in the presentation. The end result being to empower a greater portion of your business to contribute to the application development process. Right? And through the inaction of strong governance by IT, we're bringing shadow IT into the light and enable them to innovate within the guardrails that have been set forth by the organization. And the end result being, right, to accelerate our transformation to a digital business, because that's everyone's goal at the end of the day, and AgilePoint will help you get there. So what are some of the goals in implementing low-code technologies? Now you're seeing a lot of drivers on screen, but I think what we'll really do is we'll talk about the first one here, the ability to increase partnership with IT from the business. Now this has been a sticking point for as long as anyone can remember, and typically there's been a huge gulf between the requirements that the business puts forth and what IT has been able to deliver. Right? Typical tools involved translating business user requirements into lines of code, right? And we ultimately had to go through many different iterations before we were able to get to a point where the business would accept what IT had delivered. So it's these sorts of drivers, among others, that are really propelling AgilePoint in this era of digital business. So in summary, 76% of IT pros are extremely or very interested in low-code development. Right, and it's not just IT pros, right? The business as well is really poised to benefit from this no-code, low-code trend. Right, one, for the ability to enable self-service, right, without having to wait for IT to get around to it. In most organizations, there's a huge backlog of applications that need to be created. Right, using a low-code tool like AgilePoint can take a serious dent out of that IT backlog. And then lastly, it enables IT to focus on the more complex projects and to drive innovation. Right, if the business is able to self-serve, that frees up much of their time towards handling these more complicated and involved projects. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the current state of no-code and low-code tooling. There's really two sets of scenarios that we find most often. Right, the first of which in the no-code space is that they tend to be graphical, model-driven development environments, and their functionality is really targeted towards the simpler use cases or for specific use cases. Now, if you want to go beyond what they offer off the shelf, you're really facing a scenario of an unmanageable extensibility layer. Right? What you're looking at most often is the ability to, say, extend an application by dumping in some C# or some JavaScript code. Right? It's tough to say what that code does 6 months down the line when the developer has moved on to another project. So no code, while simple, brings its own sets of challenges. Low code, on the other hand, is typically viewed as a developer's power tool. Right? Maybe there's a fourth generation programming language extension, or in some cases, proprietary scripting languages. Right? But both, while they have their strengths, leave quite a bit to be desired. Right? So it's with that in mind that AgilePoint was created to address the shortcomings of both camps and to provide a sustainable path towards digital transformation. So just to touch on some of the major components here, the first of which being the breadth and depth of reusable componentry within AgilePoint. With integration into 70 systems off the shelf and 700 total workflow activities, your citizen developers can go much further and create much more complex applications before requiring code. Process modeling is where AgilePoint grew up. Whether this is the customer-facing, lighter processes that we're seeing more and more these days, or the complex and long-running BPM-style processes, AgilePoint can address all of them without writing a single line of code. We've simplified how we use and store data as a part of a business application by creating a data model directly within the browser, a form technology that is responsive to device types, desktop, mobile, or tablet, including for offline use, easily modeling the logic that runs your business, integrating with any cloud or on-premises data source, and providing a personalized portal experience on top of the AgilePoint technology. Now, of course, it's not just about enabling citizen developers. There's lots of room in AgilePoint for professional development too, as well as IT. And a lot of it comes down to this abstraction framework and how we handle the extensibility side of AgilePoint. Right? Contrasting it with what we described a moment ago, where we dump code against a specific application, using the abstraction framework in AgilePoint, even our custom components become configurable, reusable no-code components that can be leveraged by less technical users. So not only can professional developers write their own code to extend AgilePoint, but they can do so in a manner that ultimately empowers the citizen developer and to configure and reuse these custom components. Of course, all of this is backed by a web-scale platform as a service that's multi-tenant ready, enabling you to deliver the personalized experience that you need for each group, team, or division within your organization. So let's talk about a few of these primary use cases here. Right, the first of which is to align business and IT and enable unparalleled innovation. Right, with the AgilePoint platform, each role within your organization can contribute their best expertise to deliver unparalleled innovation. Citizen developers, on one hand, may focus on things like UI components, while professional developers may get involved for a complex integration or for support purposes. So what does this look like, right? Through the ability to create all of these different types of apps, it's not just about building them quickly, but about maintaining them at scale. So to go through a customer case here, a Fortune 100 manufacturer created 3,000 applications within 2 years to replace 10,000 legacy apps. Now, those 10,000 apps were built in a combination of a competitive platform as well as homegrown technology. So not only were they able to consolidate their application portfolio by 7,000 applications, they have now radically simplified how they think about building apps. Whether it's for the cloud, on-premises, or mobile devices, these 3,000 apps are now built and maintained on a single technology stack. And just to give an idea, right, this could be a SharePoint-based application. This could be an info path replacement sort of use case. Right, really compelling stuff. You really don't see this sort of scale anywhere else in the low-code market. Now, the next use case that I wanted to spend some time around today is around enabling citizen developers. Right, a great example of that comes from the Salvation Army. With one single application developer using AgilePoint who had no previous development experience to speak of was able to develop 10 applications in 2017, double that to 20 in 2018, and again double that to 40 in 2019. Really a compelling story, right? Generally, you see this sort of volume out of a team of developers, right? Not a single citizen developer who had no development experience prior to undertaking AgilePoint. Now the next is this concept of enabling the full-cycle developer, right? And this was originally a term that was pioneered by Netflix and has really become a reality for many of our customers through the use of the AgilePoint platform. Right, full-cycle development is this concept of a developer being able to deliver all facets of the software development lifecycle. Right, from the capturing of initial requirements through the build of the application, operation, support, and continuous improvement. Right, and through the technology stack built into AgilePoint, we make this a reality with one single piece of software. So of course, having all of these components built in means that we've empowered the developer to reach productivity heights that are really not seen before. Right, and a great example of that here is with a global wireless communications provider. With 140 cell towers worldwide and wildly ranging regulations and compliance requirements across each region they operate, this developer initially had a nearly insurmountable task, right, to build an application that managed all of these different cell towers. So this is a great story about building an application that responds to the different requirements, business conditions in the different areas of the globe. And instead of building discrete applications for each of these regions, we're able to build one highly dynamic application to manage these various sites. Just to talk a little bit about their application, there is one main process, 10 sub-processes that dynamically execute based on inputs into the application, 170 total activities, 65 user interface forms, built all within 3 months. Right, really compelling stuff. Now, a team of 2, right? You generally see this sort of productivity or this sort of scale out of a team of developers. Right, and this team is not only building the application, they're maintaining it, they're continuously improving it, and that dream of becoming a full cycle developer has been realized thanks to AgilePoint. So taking this full cycle development concept and showing what this can really mean when applied by someone with a development sort of skill set. Right, a top 10 retailer that you've probably known by name for quite some time. There's an article that I'd recommend you all take a look at. But in just 4 days, one of our developers was able to release an application with more functionality that was developed over a period of 12 months with a competitive platform. Right? Really just a slice of that overall technology. So really just showing that not only is AgilePoint suited towards empowering the less technical users, but can really yield transformative results when wielded by a professional developer. Now there's many different ways that you can consume this technology, and feel free to make the choice that correlates best with your security and your risk profiles. Regardless of where you start, there's a single code base across all of these deployment types. So if you start off on premises and want to move to the cloud, you have instant time to value for that cloud migration. Right? You're instantly able to take advantage of the economic savings without having to refactor or rebuild any of your applications. We offer a pay-as-you-grow licensing model, right, with a very innovative concurrent subscription model, right, and again, with a tier that correlates to your level of usage. All right, so let's switch gears a moment and go through a live demo. So for today's demo, I'm using AgilePoint's public cloud, which is a SaaS offering that runs on AWS or Azure. And I've logged in today using my existing Office 365 credentials. AgilePoint supports the concept of bring your own identity, so no need to maintain separate username and password just to use AgilePoint. Now what I'm showing you today is the out-of-the-box experience. Here we have the AgilePoint portal homepage and end-user components. Right, this is where I manage my tasks, I get access to applications, as well as reports that I might access frequently. Now this can be personalized for every group, team, or division within the organization by easily creating a landing page on top of AgilePoint. I have an example of that here on screen. Right, and as you can see, I can launch any sort of AgilePoint application, as well as add any type of media, audio, images, video, and build a menu experience here, which allows me to connect everyone within the organization, right, from a shared homepage to individual pages for each group, team, or division within your business. So for my demo today, I want to show you 3 different types of applications. The first will be a form-based app, right, which reads and writes data to some external data source. Now there's no workflow or approval steps to speak of here, right, but next we'll go through a process-based application, give you an example of what a typical application can look like from an AgilePoint perspective, and then we'll close it off with another look at a process-based app, this time using a conversational interface, right, also known as a chatbot. So the applications that I have for today, we'll start off with the data-driven or form-based app, is launched by a custom landing page. Now this was built for an on-site POC for the city of Boston and was instrumental in AgilePoint's selection. So as you can see here, I have some information about the city, right? Things like the tow lot, parking meter information, street cleaning hours. But underneath the Common Resources section, all of these tiles correspond to various AgilePoint components. They might be applications, might have a link to my task list as an example. So let's give you a sense of what one of these applications can look like. Now what you're seeing on screen here is an HTML5 and jQuery responsive form technology, which means that I get the exact same experience whether I'm on the desktop as I am today, or using the mobile device, whether that's through the browser or AgilePoint's mobile app. Now AgilePoint understands who's logged in and has pre-populated some data on my behalf. So I'm just going to enter some data here. And the use case for this application is a construction permit. So if I'd like to add an extension to my existing home, I can do so using this application. And there's a couple of different ways that I can look up the site where I'd like to build. I can enter based on coordinates for latitude and longitude, right? Or simply enter the address where I want to make an addition. So as you can see here, based on the data that's been entered, a lookup was triggered using the City of Boston's publicly available REST service, right? And this is something that was brought into this application without using any sort of code, right? It's very common for multiple data sets to be brought into a single application, right? And through the use of an extensive connector offering, AgilePoint can easily integrate with the business systems already in use within your organization. So that data was passed over to my Google map here, and I can continue to zoom in and see the location where I'll be doing some construction. The next thing that I'll want to do here is select my role, right? And based on the selections that I'm making here, you'll see some dynamic actions displaying on the form. Now, the first thing that I want to do here is attach the contractor's license, whom I'm working with. And upon upload, I'll have one other file upload control popping up, where I can again attach data. Now, where this data lives behind the scenes is up to you, right? AgilePoint supports 70 integrations off the shelf, right, with the ability to create new integrations as needed. So the possibilities are essentially endless in terms of where you're storing and using your data. But for now, I'll just submit this. Now, one of the great things about the form-based application component in AgilePoint is that it builds a lot of these components on your behalf. Right, I'm showing a few of those examples here on screen. When building a form-based application, it creates views for all construction permits, in this case, recently created or recently modified requests. If I need to refer back to any requests that were submitted previously, I can do so here by clicking View. Make modifications, or simply delete the record. Now in this case here, all of this data is residing in AgilePoint's data entity, but again, there are 70 integrations off the shelf with the ability to create many more. So you have many options in terms of where you're storing the data, right? We can easily align with the existing technology choices that your business has made. So let's move along and show an example of a process-based application. This app is also driven from a custom landing page, right? And as you can see here, I've surfaced a number of AgilePoint components. Things like reports, my task list, and the ability to launch new applications. So for this application, it's driven by the attachment of an Excel spreadsheet, right? We wanted to get away from using Excel internally. It doesn't offer much in terms of versioning, right? And they tend to live on people's desktops, so it's hard to know if you have access to high quality data. So to that end, once we attach an Excel document here, AgilePoint extracts all of the values from that document and pre-populates the form on my behalf. Now optionally, I can attach additional documents, add comments, right? And these comments are helpful not only for subsequent approvers in my process, right, but can also easily be written to a database for reporting purposes. So I'll click Submit here, and in just a moment, I'll receive a task via my inbox. Now, email-based notifications was simply a choice that I made for this application. There's obviously notifications from within AgilePoint itself, SMS-based notifications, and notifications through your favorite chat provider, Slack, Microsoft Teams, or Skype for Business as an example. So what I've brought up here on screen is the process viewer. Right, this is really helpful from an end user's perspective to understand where we are in our business process, the steps that are remaining, and the time it might take before the process completes. So I just brought this up here because I wanted to explain a few of the steps in my process here. So after that initial submission step, we have a review step performed by a supervisor. Upon approval, we will assemble a document from the application data that's been captured by AgilePoint. We'll send that document for digital signature via DocuSign. And then we're going to invoke robotic process automation. This is a new integration offered by AgilePoint in Software Update 1 of AgilePoint version 7, and is really helpful to cut down on manual effort or to integrate systems that do not have an API. So let's go back to my email inbox here and open up this task. Now, as a reviewer here, I can maybe change data and certain values if I need to. I can send it back to the prior step in my process, but for demo purposes, let's just click Submit and move the process along. So as you can see here, we're now generating the document, and in just a moment, I will receive a digital signature request via DocuSign. Okay, so that digital signature request should have come in by now. So let's review the document and place my signature. Okay, so now that we've placed the signature here, we have just a few seconds delay built in just to help with the pacing of the demo. But in just another moment, we'll create the report view, which makes this form available for historical record keeping, right? If I need to refer to this particular instance, I can easily see all of the data that's been entered. As you're seeing on screen here, we've now invoked my robotic process automation software robot, and it's taking the application data that we entered, and it's writing it first to a WinForm application. And in just another moment, we'll open up a website and follow the same process. All right, so that concludes this process. For the last demo today, I wanted to show a different view of a process-based application. Right, what we're going to do here is show you how AgilePoint can be leveraged with a conversational interface or chatbot. Now I've surfaced the chatbot here in Slack, but you have lots of options here in terms of how you consume these types of apps. We've done them in intranets or public-facing websites, as well as through various chat providers, things like Microsoft Teams or Skype for Business, in addition to Slack. And what we're doing here is we're onboarding ourselves for a legal consultation with a law firm. Right now I get all of the same capabilities that you might expect from an AgilePoint perspective. Things like dynamic actions, right? If this, then that. Integration with all 70 business systems, and just much more conversational sort of style. So you'll see here that it's asking me for my email address, right? This is important because I'm using this application in an unauthenticated mode, right? Meaning that this would be a great way to open up these types of applications to your customers and partners without them consuming an AgilePoint license. So based on the selections that I've made here, right, things like the lawyer that I've selected, the consultation length, in just another moment here, I will receive a task to process a payment via PayPal. So I'm going to confirm my selection here, and in just another moment, I'll receive a task to my inbox to process my payment, and that same payment link will show up here in just another moment. So I just heard my inbox go off, so I should see this link showing up in just another moment here. There we go. So as you're seeing on screen, right, all of the data that was captured by the bot has been passed over to AgilePoint. So I can do a quick review of all of the data that's been entered. And then under the Payment tab, can input my personal details as well as my credit card information and process that payment via PayPal. Okay, so that concludes the demo section. Let's move over to Q&A. Okay, so the first question is, yes, we will provide a link to the webinar. We will certainly send that out a little bit later on this afternoon. The next question coming in is, what sort of training do I need to start using AgilePoint? Well, the good news is AgilePoint has made it very easy to get familiar with our technology stack. Right? There are both structured, free learning courses that are available at training.agilepoint.com, and we'll include those links in our follow-up here. And in addition, right, if you're a customer, there is tailored training packages available. Right, so really we can get you going here in a matter of a couple of weeks. Right, obviously one of the factors to consider is who will be using AgilePoint and what sorts of applications will you be building with our platform. Right, and typically we see an average first application getting out the door and into user acceptance testing or production within the first few weeks. Now, the next question that I have coming in here is, what is the AgilePoint architecture? So AgilePoint is a .NET-based platform and uses SQL Server on the back end. Right, that being said, we do work with just about every technology. We're not limited to the Microsoft stack by any means. Right, and there's many different ways that you can extend our platform, right? Whether that's through C# or through Java. And then obviously on the UI side with things like JavaScript and CSS. All right, the next question coming in is, what makes AgilePoint different from other providers? Well, one of the big differentiators is, something that we touched on very early in the slide deck, right? And that was how you customize AgilePoint. But what we've seen in the low-code space is that typically, you're not extending the entire platform. You're extending specific applications. And while that can be handy from a developer perspective, the question that we often ask is, what happens when that developer is moved to a different project? Right? How easy is it to understand what that custom code has done? Right, so that was really the reason behind the AgilePoint extension framework, right? The ability to abstract away things like code and turn your custom components into a reusable and configurable asset. Right, and using these configurable components, your application is essentially self-documenting. Right, so there'll never be any sort of misunderstandings as to what custom code does or whether our application documentation is current or not. That's a good question. Okay, and there's one question left here, and that was, how did the Salvation Army find its citizen developer? Well, this is an interesting question, because I think for many organizations, you already have a sense of, who the technically inclined users are within your organization. Right? You might see them as maybe a power user or super user or something of that nature. So, oftentimes the one challenge that we do see is, how does this get squared away with the rest of the business, right? How do we balance the user's primary responsibilities to their day-to-day job with additional responsibilities that may come along with citizen development, right? But you don't need to take my word for it. The best way to get a great answer on this question here is to watch our short webinar with Forrester analysts and the Salvation Army themselves, right? This is a question that David from the Salvation Army spent a good amount of time on, right? And he goes in great detail as to how they identified their citizen developer, how they work through some of the logistics of having dual duty in terms of job function, and just generally discusses some of the considerations that they went through in making their selection. Okay, I'm going to leave the line open here for another moment or two just to see if we have any more questions coming in. But thank you so much, everyone, for bearing with us with our technical challenges and for your great engaging questions. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions at all. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.